kicking us up at number 5, we've got the Haunted Bionicle.
Yeah. Hang on, there's nothing up here. What the crap? There's nothing in here either, look.
Okay, so we're starting this one off a little unconventionally. I'm sure thousands of lonely little lads out there will yell, "They're not dolls, they're action figures." I know, I get it. But for the sake of outrageous creepitude, let's investigate the case of the moving Bionicle. Reddit user BleachPong shared a video of his brothers watching TV. If you can look past the extremely dusty Xbox, you'll see that they're reacting to some noises. Apparently, ever since they moved into their relatively new home, they'd heard strange noises at odd times. Most commonly, that of someone sifting through their tubs of Lego. This would happen most often when nobody was around to be making said racket. Over the years, this strange noise would consistently weird the brothers out. In fact, it happened so often that it became a bit of a legend between them and their friends. So, them considering this particular event isn't too outrageous to consider. Back to the dusty Xbox room, the two brothers hear a noise, plastic blocks being disturbed from their resting place. So they follow it to a long closet full of old toys. Quite an impressive collection of Lego, Transformers, Bionicles, and more. They open the door, flick on the lights, and film the inside of the room. Now, they don't notice it in the recording, but something very strange is going on at the back of the closet. Let's get that clip again.
There's nothing up here.
Did you see that? The big custom Bionicle moving its head? Well, it's not supposed to do that. Like I said before, they didn't really see it happen when recording, but upon reviewing the footage, they realized the chilling movement. After sharing it with the internet, they claimed that the neck joint was stiff and shouldn't be moving without outside influence. It also seems unlikely that pests like mice or rats could be causing all this ruckus, let alone moving just the head on a toy. So what do you think? Is the toy moving on its own, or is it something else entirely? Sneaking in at number 4, we've got Annabelle, the classic. How can you make a haunted dolls list without including Annabelle? It simply isn't done. The now Hollywood famous doll held captive at Ed and Lorraine Warren's occult museum for decades. Annabelle has been caught moving many times, even when behind the glass at the museum. There's just no stopping this evil plaything. She was first documented after being gifted to a young nursing student named Donna. Donna would treat the doll like a little girl even after odd things started happening. At first, Annabelle would just move around when no one was looking. Her arms and legs would cross and uncross, or her head would tilt at odd angles. If Donna and her roommate were gone long enough, they might even come back to find Annabelle in a totally new area. What really set their fear response off though was when Annabelle left pencil-written notes for them throughout the apartment. Messages like, "Help us," could be discovered in different parts of their home. The true terror began though when a boyfriend came to visit. Lou, who was dating Donna's roommate at the time, would come over from time to time. One night, after crashing on the couch like a respectable young man, Lou experienced a very strange occurrence. He felt the doll creeping up his leg. Terrified, he sat up and saw it attempting to strangle him. After this, he blacked out, and when he awoke, he just assumed it was a nightmare. The terror didn't end there though. Soon after, Annabelle snuck up on Lou and cut him, leaving distinct claw marks on his chest. The injuries healed over almost immediately though, leading people to think either one of two things. Either Lou was making it up, or Annabelle had mysterious powers. After these violent incidents, however, Donna had to believe the doll was up to something. She called a priest, who then encouraged her to contact the Warrens, and the rest is history. Laughing his way in at number 3, we've got Tickle Me Elmo. You could probably write a whole book on all the times Tickle Me Elmo has acted strange. There's something about bringing a giggling, wiggling, red fur-covered robot into your house that doesn't sit right with me. First introduced in the 90s, Tickle Me Elmo was a hot ticket item for families everywhere. Once this little red rapscallion made it into millions of homes, weird stories started cropping up. Folks would report that he was found in places that he should not have been able to access, or worse, moving without batteries in. The giggles and chuckles of the furry freak were heard throughout the night, even when it was left in a very much off position. So, what was happening? Well, in all likelihood, it was people imagining things or the electronics of a relatively primitive toy malfunctioning. But that didn't stop people from telling tall tales of the ticklish toy tormenting tots. Eventually though, the urban legends calmed down and the Tickle Me Elmo stories died out. That is, until a new edition was released. Back in 2008, there was a new version of the interactive toy hitting the shelves. Called Elmo Knows Your Name, this was a Tickle Me Elmo for the PC era. By connecting it to a personal computer, you could program the toy to repeat phrases and remember names. A novel idea for sure, but it became disturbing fast. Melissa Bowman, a mother who had bought her son the toy, claimed that it started to say something particularly disturbing. In a sing-song voice, Elmo started saying, "Kill James, kill James." Not exactly what you want to hear from a children's toy, especially when your kid's name is James. Young James even started repeating what Elmo was saying. Yikes. Melissa wasn't sure how the toy learned how to do that. Whether it was a prank or some faulty programming, we may never know. Coming in at number 2, we've got Robert the Doll. Another classic. Robert the Doll also managed to inspire a major doll-based horror movie franchise, but because they don't share the same name, he doesn't enjoy as much fame as Annabelle. The life-size figure was the inspiration for Chucky, star of the Child's Play series. Robert was originally given to Robert Eugene Gene Otto as a present when he was young. The details on who the doll came from are a little more fuzzy though. Some say it was a gift from his grandfather, which doesn't seem to corroborate the whole evil, haunted bit. Others, however, claim that it came from an angry voodoo-practicing maid who wanted to get revenge on Gene and his family for some misdeeds against her. Robert the Doll has been seen changing expressions and moving around on his own over the years. Some also say that he moved around other things and planted voodoo figures throughout the house. While most dolls have an origin story related to the death of somebody close, this one seems to have taken to life without any such morbidity. Dressed as Gene and sharing his first name, the doll would often get blamed for things Gene did. Apparently, this is what unlocked its supernatural powers. People in the house would tell stories of overhearing Gene talking to Robert and Robert talking back. These days, Robert is kept at the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida. Visitors will often complain of post-visit misfortunes after seeing Robert. Those who fail to respect him often find themselves getting into car accidents, breaking bones, losing jobs, and having marital problems. Jeez, Robert, just let the people live. And finally, at number 1, we've got Ruby. The last haunted doll we'll discuss today is less terrifying and more tragic. She's not malicious or mean-spirited. In fact, she's apparently very sweet. But the effects she imposes on people around her are very strange indeed. Passed down over generations, Ruby is an old family heirloom. Apparently, years ago, a young girl died while holding this very doll. After she passed away, the doll will be found in all sorts of places all over the house. Folks would leave it in the living room and later find it in the kitchen. Sometimes it might even sneak up to a bedroom. In addition to moving around, Ruby would also leave people feeling blue and sad and even nauseous. Headaches, allergic reactions, and exhaustion were also reported. For years, nobody knew what to do with the doll. It was creepy. Nobody wanted it roaming around their house, making weird noise and causing people to feel ill. However, it did have the spirit of a deceased family member attached to it. So the family would pass it from member to member. Each person would deal with the weirdness for a little while, and then Ruby would move along to her next new home. After spending time in different family homes for years, Ruby made it to the Traveling Museum of the Paranormal and Occult. It was here that the ill effects seemed to subside, with sickness and headaches happening less often. These were replaced with much different feelings. Some visitors even reported familiar maternal feelings, even rocking Ruby back and forth like a real child. In fact, Ruby often brings people to tears with sudden, overwhelming affection. So the sweet little girl is still in there somewhere, looking to show people that she's not as evil as most make haunted dolls out to be.
Starting us off in at number 5, Lorraine introduces Annabelle. In this clip titled "Haunted Dolls Caught on Tape Moving," we see a portion of an interview with Lorraine Warren walking through the occult museum and stopping in front of Annabelle. Lorraine says that Annabelle is the worst thing in the museum and refuses to stare at it while the visitor takes a photo of it. She goes on to say it's done a lot of harm to a lot of people. The doll is supposed to be moving in the clip, but it's a bit hard to tell since of how shaky and close the shot of her is. Take a look.
I'm not going to stare at it though. So you can take the picture, but I'm not going to stare at it because that has done bad harm on a lot of people.
Up next at number 4, Trick of the Light. If you look closely during this feature on the Warrens and their occult museum, you may think you see the Annabelle doll moving ever so slightly. While it's arguably a trick of the light or a product of shadows, to some, it looks as if the doll's chest is moving, as if she's breathing. Creepy, eh? The feature goes on to tell the whole story of the Annabelle doll and how the 2 young women who lived with her initially would try to set little tests in their apartment to see if anyone was coming in to try to scare them by moving the doll rather than the doll just moving on its own. Unfortunately for them, it seemed like the doll was moving on her own. Moving on to 3, 1969. This one is so very obviously a hoax. For starters, if this footage was taken in 1969, there's no way in hell that the quality of the image would look like that. Anywho, while this isn't the real Annabelle doll, it surely takes inspiration from the real one, and it makes our list for giving off one hell of a jump scare. It's a 50-second clip with a Raggedy Ann doll seated on a chair, with a weird spooky soundtrack playing over top. Eventually, by the end of the video, the Annabelle wannabe doll jumps up on its own out of the chair, and it's pretty creepy. Take a look for yourself. Moving on to number 2, don't make fun. In this clip, we see Ed Warren talking about Annabelle and how, despite being locked up in her case, she managed to harm someone who's knocked on the case's glass. According to Ed, this man taunted the doll, saying that if it could really perform evil acts, that it should go ahead and try. 3 hours later, the man was allegedly dead, having gotten into a motorcycle accident after leaving. Driving away with his girlfriend, the two were having a laugh at Annabelle's expense when they got into the crash, which killed him and paralyzed his girlfriend from the waist down. In the video, if you look closely, it appears that the book in front of Annabelle is moving, or that she is ever so slightly swaying in the shot, where the doll is in the background and Ed Warren is in the foreground.
A young man came here, felt it was nothing but a joke, started knocking on the glass, saying if this thing could perform any kind of evil act, to do it. 3 hours later, the young man was dead. He came here on a motorcycle with his girlfriend. She said they were laughing about the doll when they left. She was paralyzed in a hospital for over a year.
And finally, in our number 1 spot, From Case to Case. This video is titled Moving of the Annabelle Doll, February 22nd, 2017. And it has over 2 million views. With viewership like that, it's gotta have something authentic about it, right? Well, you guys can be the judge of that. In this clip, we see Lorraine Warren's son-in-law, Tony Spira, alongside a host who informs viewers that they will be filming the removal of Annabelle from her current case and transferring her into another one that is more secure and portable. 6 minutes into the video, they open up the case after saying prayers and taking other precautions. After Annabelle is moved, a binding spell is said out loud. Numerous people claim to see Annabelle moving ever so slightly right after she was moved into her new case. Although her legs kind of bob around during the initial transfer, when she's sat down, that's when the movement allegedly happens. So, what do you guys think? Do you spot anything out of the norm?
Okay. Quickly. Right over here. Go into the new case.
Personally, I'm more inclined to agree with this guy in the comments who said, it's more scary that people still shoot in vertical using their phones nowadays. Ooh, touche.
Coming in at number 5, Possessed Barbie. When we think of Barbies, we think of some of our first toys, the ones we would spend hours with in our rooms creating stories and making them make out. Come on, we all did it, wasn't just me. Anyway, for the most part, Barbies are designed the same, designed to be beautiful with unrealistic body shapes. However, they are not made to look like Chucky. There is quite literally nothing scary about a Barbie unless you had a younger sibling who cut all the hair off, which often happened, and if you did have that, I'm really sorry. That was until this video surfaced, which showed a young girl playing with 2 Barbie dolls on her bed. She seems to be having the best time. That is until a male voice calls out to her, and when she responds, one of the dolls in her hands very quickly turns its head to look at her. The girl is clearly petrified and throws the dolls before falling backwards. I mean, just take a look. The entire thing is distressing.
Vou comer sua língua.
Sora, vem comer!
Tá bom!
Coming in at number 4, Haunted Birthday Doll. In this creepy video, a teenager can be seen holding a large doll. However, the cute clip soon turns nightmarish when the doll's head spins towards the girl's face, almost looking directly at her. Now, I should preface by saying that the doll appears to be a quinceañera doll, which is often gifted to girls on their 15th birthday, and are dressed to look similar to the birthday girl. It is to mark the last doll the girl will ever receive before officially becoming a woman. Anyway, this poor girl clearly received some kind of hellish nightmare, because her birthday doll came to life. Prior to it moving, the girl who was speaking Spanish says something along the lines of the doll being ugly, which is just downright cruel and upsetting, resulting in the doll turning its head and staring at the girl like, what the f did you just say? The girl is obviously freaked out and throws the doll down in pure terror. Worse still, unlike a lot of videos about toys coming to life, there is no humor in this one. No laughing, no grin, no smirk, just pure horror and fear in the eyes of the young girl.
Bueno, aquí les presentamos a la muñeca de Bessie que se la regalaron a sus 15 años.
No manches, mira.
Coming in at number 3, Evil Possessed Doll. First and foremost, the doll in this video is bad news from the start, and it honestly doesn't surprise me that it might be possessed, because just looking at it sends shivers down my spine. It actually kind of looks like me, to be honest. The doll has a face as white as mine, which is quite the accomplishment, and long dark black hair with matching outfit. It is placed in the corner of the room just next to the little girl, sitting and staring off into the distance with some kind of red object, which I think is a candle, placed in front of her. Anyway, it seems the doll might have some jealousy issues, don't we all? Because in the video, the mother who was filming asks her daughter about her new toy, which the girl refers to as Lovable. Now, this was a huge mistake, because as soon as she does that, the creepy doll in the background begins to raise its arm. And as soon as it does this, the candle thing placed in front of it begins to roll away. This is absolutely terrifying because the girl seems utterly unaware of what is unfolding behind her. And worse still, no one is even close to touching the doll, meaning it is moving of its own accord. Like I said before, I think the creepy doll has some jealousy issues and isn't too happy that her owner has a new doll friend. Honestly, I would have burned the doll as soon as I saw this video. But to be fair, I wouldn't have bought that doll. It's creepy as fuck.
What's his name?
Lovable.
Lovable. Sure his name isn't like Fred or Henry?
I think his name is Henry.
Coming in at number 2, we have Haunted Doll Moves. I think it's safe to say that there really isn't anything much creepier than a spooky looking old doll. Am I right? Especially a lot of them. I've never trusted anyone who collects dolls. I've actually never trusted anyone who collects anything, and I'm sorry if that's you. However, one woman had a ton of old and terrifying looking dolls stored in one room of her home. On one particular day, she decided to film those dolls for a video, and she certainly got more than she bargained for. To begin, the camera pans, and we're forced to stare at each individual doll, which is spooky enough. However, one doll does something that honestly makes me never want to leave my house again. At around the 48-second mark, one of the dolls definitely moves. It's quick, but it's there. When we reach one of the baby-looking dolls, its arm quickly goes from a raised position to moving down to its side. You even hear the noise to go along with it. It happens so quickly that you almost think it could be a trick of the light or that your mind made it up. But it happens. Just take a look. Trust me. And finally, coming in at number 1, we have Haunted Puppet. One creepy puppet who was said to have choked its former owner was filmed back in 2015 moving inside a sealed glass container in the dead of night. Yep, that's right, the puppet was caught freely moving on its own accord. Paranormal investigator Jane Harris recorded the puppet every night for almost 3 months, after its previous owner claimed it tried to choke him to death. However, what she discovered after reviewing the footage was absolutely terrifying. Night vision footage shows the puppet's operating cross slowly moving upright before crashing into the sealed box glass panes. Jane went on to state, I quote, "I've never had anything as exciting as this. I've caught pictures of mists, orbs, and shadows, but nothing as physical as this video evidence. Normally you expect to see an orb or a shadow, but as soon as I saw a bit of movement and a glint from the metal hooks, it made me jump and I knew we'd recorded something important." She went on to state that, "We've always kept the puppet in a sealed, blessed cabinet, as it's a safe zone. It also means we can keep our experiments as controlled as possible. The cabinet has no doors, so you would have to physically lift all 4 sides and the base off to move it. There are not any holes or space for anything to sneak in there." The footage has convinced her that there could be in fact a spirit associated with the puppet. The puppet's former owner, John, inherited the puppet in the 60s following the death of his father, and he claims to have experienced minor haunting experiences which built up to one evening where he believes the spirit attached to the puppet was choking him. I quote, "I cleared out all of my dad's belongings apart from the puppet, which I left on the drawer by my bed for some reason, and that night it felt like I was being choked. I was wide awake in bed and I thought I saw a shadow move from one side of the window to the other, and was worried something was trying to scare us. Then, without warning, my throat suddenly went really tight. I've never had anyone's hands around my throat before, so it was really scary. While I was choking, I tried to wake my wife, and when she came around, I remember looking straight at the puppet sitting on the drawers near our bed and realizing it was him." That's absolutely terrifying.